When the mysterious Memento killer rears his ugly head in Gotham City again, will it be the thing that ultimately ends up driving a major wedge between father and son? Well, let's hop into the pages of Batman and Robin issues number 16 and number 17, as we catch up together, shall we? So then, picking up directly from where the last issue left off, Batman and Robin were still on the trail of the mysterious Memento killer, a strange otherworldly serial killer who commits crimes that directly reference horrible tragedies from the past. He also has won a hell of a fan club, including a bunch of true crime junkies who have currently broken into the ruins of Arkham Asylum. Again, I always end up doing a double take when I'm forced to remember that, yeah, Arkham Asylum hasn't actually been a thing for a couple years in the comics, and no writer has ever actually bothered to put it back. Now, some of these true crime fanatics are true believers in Memento, and some are just your regular everyday podcasters looking to make a buck off ad revenue. Hey, I can relate. Though in this situation, they all end up flying too close to the sun together, as they are all victims of what seems to be some horrifying paranormal activity, as they hear the voice of Nicodemus Crow and all of Arkham's old cells open up, releasing nightmarish zombie creatures, or at least that's what it looks like. You see, by the time Batman and Robin end up making the scene and looking it over themselves, they realize that there's a lot more going on here than meets the eye. First and foremost, all these true crime podcasters were drugged before they were killed. It also looks like they tore each other apart. But why on earth would this paranormal Memento killer need to use drugs to get the job done? We don't know for certain, but what Batman does know is that this entire crime scene reminds him very much of one that he had seen originally back while working with Scotland Yard. You'll remember that his friends there were Dr. Bly and Catherine. Together, they were all investigating the murders committed by the original Memento killer. And just like in Gotham many years later, the crime scene played out exactly the same. A group of people were poisoned with a hallucinogenic known as Gravedigger's Poppy before tearing into each other. Dr. Bly, young Bruce's mentor, also makes reference here to Nicodemus Crow, the Aleister Crowley-style cult leader who operated in Gotham City. Apparently him and his followers would imbibe Gravedigger's Poppy so that they could hallucinate. Crow also believed that violence left a scar on the world, a kind of vestige that he hoped that he could see if he just tried hard enough. Again, this would seek to connect Memento's own obsession with committing crimes that mirror those from history. It could also possibly imply that maybe, just maybe, they aren't dealing with a copycat killer, and that maybe the Memento killer has actually existed this whole time. Maybe they truly are paranormal, and that all these horrible murders aren't actually meant to mirror tragedies from the past. They're all just playing out in a cycle over and over again. But why? Well, Batman and Robin aren't sure, but thankfully they don't have to figure this one out on their own, as they're joined by Jim Gordon, who apparently has been hired as a freelancer by the GCPD to dig deeper into this mystery, but also Catherine. Yes, that's right, Bruce's old friend from Scotland Yard has been brought in by the French police as an expert on the original Memento murders. Bruce says that those crimes were very personal to Catherine, and seeing her now is bringing up all sorts of memories. Now, Bruce has a lead, and everyone agrees to meet up at Arkham Tower later that night, but before that, Bruce and Damian decide to go on a little training exercise. They traverse the roofs of Gotham talking about the case, but they don't do it in English, though. They do it in different Russian dialects. Because, hey, you know, you gotta keep the mind sharp, and you never know when you might have to do this in the field. Of course, Damian's mind is a million miles away right now. He's still obsessing over that little girl who got grievously injured during Memento's attack, and Bruce has noticed. In fact, he's getting very frustrated at his son right now. It turns out he's been skipping school during the day. Though it's not for the sort of reason you might expect. Damian has been skipping school and hasn't been as interested in training as of recently because he's actively been volunteering at the hospital with Dr. Bashir. And you know what? Batman is actually a little uncharacteristically jealous of Dr. Bashir. He knows his son is hurting and has problems, but feels that, you know what, maybe he should talk to like his dad about it. This is actually some pretty interesting family drama that ends up getting derailed almost instantly as Damian decides to leave in a huff before eventually bringing up the death of Alfred once again by saying that he refuses to let anyone die for his mistakes in the same way that Alfred died for Batman's. Ow, okay, A, that is an incredibly low blow on Robin's part, and 2, did you guys not just work through this at the end of the Joshua Williams series? Why do we gotta bring up old shit? It was done, it was over, move on, please. zombies. After that, Batman ends up going to his Arkham Tower meeting with Detective Catherine all alone. The plan is to interrogate none other than Jonathan Crane the Scarecrow, a leading mind in the world of chemical warfare, to see what he knows about Gravedigger's Poppy. At first, Crane does everything in his power to try and play dumb, that he's never heard of it, that it's a wives' tale, an old fantasy that no one was able to recreate. Though Catherine catches him in a lie pretty easily. Apparently, Crane actually wrote an entire dissertation on Gravedigger's Poppy and how one could recreate it as a college junior. It's after that the Scarecrow actually ends up showing fear for a change and clamming up. It seems that Memento is already inside the walls of Arkham Tower, and that he forced Scarecrow into working for him. How? Well, apparently one of the guards, who now currently has his gun trained on Batman, is also something of a true crime junkie. He was there at Arkham Asylum when the murders took place, and now it seems he is still serving Memento's will as he ignites a massive bomb, which once again ends up filling the air with more Gravedigger's Poppy. Batman breathes in the fumes and starts tripping balls. He says that he's been under the influence of Scarecrow's fear toxin before, but this feels entirely different. Not only does he start seeing zombies and the specter of the Memento killer himself, but also many different horrors from Gotham's past brought to life. Now, that's where issue 16 comes to an end, and as we join issue 17, we are treated to another flashback to Bruce's formative years working for Scotland Yard. Catherine, it seems, tried to go out of her way to psychically profile Bruce and realized pretty quickly that he was lying. His name wasn't really Jack, and that he is almost certainly working to try and become a detective right now because he was the victim of violent crime at some point in his life. Bruce and Catherine also both went against their mentor Dr. Bly's orders and decided to follow their own lead, involving the Memento killer, only to realize during their stakeout that Dr. Bly had also come to this place and that he might very well be in danger. Now, back in the present, Batman and Catherine do everything they can to fight their way past the hallucinogenic hordes and save as many workers inside Arkham Tower as they can. The big rub being that we as the reader and even Batman in the story isn't 100% certain what they're seeing right now is real and what might very well be a chemically induced illusion. Scarecrow's no help either at this point. He breathed in so much of the Gravedigger's Poppy, he's practically brain dead at the moment. Now, where is Damien while all of this is going on? Well, good to his word, he's hard at work at the Sacred Heart Medical Center. It seems that the little girl from before that has him so torn up is on her way to making a full recovery, but still Damien is too ashamed of himself to actually go and talk to her. Dr. Bashir can see that the kid is horribly conflicted and tries to get him to open up. They end up having one of those classic conversations where, I'm not really talking about my dad being Batman, but the subtext is my dad is Batman. Damien talks about how he feels cowardly because of everything that's been going on and how hard it is to live in the shadow of a great man like Bruce Wayne. But perhaps the most interesting thing he says is how hard it is to ask someone like Bruce for help with your problems when deep down Bruce hasn't really dealt with all of his problems. It's at that point Damien ends up getting an alert from Oracle that Bruce is in desperate need of evac. Robin suits up and fights his way to Arkham Tower and manages to save his father just in the nick of time. Well, in the flashback, we see the end of that story with Dr. Bly. Apparently, he had managed to corner the original Memento killer right before he did something truly horrible. The implication is that Bly may very well have shot and killed the Memento killer that day if Bruce and Catherine didn't come on in to stop him, which is interesting because it seems that Memento's big motivation is punishing Bruce for something he did. Bruce ends up coming to in the cave 24 hours later and he's pretty delirious. Worse still, in this state he actively blames Damien for not being there when he needed him during the Arkham Tower explosion, though honestly, how much do you think he could have done? Damien says he's thinking so much differently now about the world and about Batman and Robin's place in it. Maybe they really do end up inspiring these crazy monsters like Memento, and that maybe they're a little too obsessed with fighting crime when they should maybe be more interested in trying to heal the world the same way Dr. Bashir is. And it's at that moment right there Batman really starts to wonder if Bashir is connected to all of this. Hey, this guy shows up out of nowhere, ends up driving a wedge between him and his son. Right around the same time, this mysterious Memento killer resurfaces and starts making very personal attacks on Bruce himself. It's all just too convenient, right? Bruce actually essentially asks Oracle to do everything in her power to look into Bashir and also see if he has any connections to Ra's al Ghul or the Lazarus Pit. Now, while that's going on, Damian goes to meet Detective Catherine and Jim Gordon. Crane may be unresponsive, but Damian thinks that they can find some evidence if they dig through his laboratory for a little bit. It's also here Damian ends up dropping a turn of phrase very similar to one Bruce used as a young man. It's implied here that Catherine is at least now suspicious that Bruce and Batman are the same person. And hey, speaking of Batman, his plate just keeps on filling up. Not only does he have to deal with the Memento killer, but he also has to deal with a small-scale gang war being fought between Tiger Shark and the Penguin. You'll recall Memento had actually crashed a ship into the docks where Tiger Shark was conducting business several issues back, and yeah, we've actually circled back to it now. Thankfully though, the Dark Knight, who still may very well be under the influence of Gravedigger's Poppy, won't have to deal with this problem on his own, as Oracle managed to take the initiative to reach out to Jason Todd the Red Hood to come on in for the assist. And honestly, this is kind of a big deal because we haven't seen Jason in any of these books for a while now. And so that was Batman and Robin issue number 16 and number 17, everybody. And man, I gotta tell you, I don't think there's another series on the shelf right now that I am more conflicted about than this one right here, because for every one thing I like, I feel it ends up getting balanced out by something I don't like. Damian getting interested in medicine and the legacy of his grandfather Thomas Wayne is some really interesting material. It's a shame that he just acts like a jerk, or that like all the character growth he went through during that last Joshua Williamson series just didn't happen. In fact, I get the strong feeling that had I not read that Williamson series and just started here, I'd probably like the book more. Batman fighting a paranormal threat in Memento also has some really cool implications for it, but also Memento might not even be magical at all. At best and at worst, it seems that a lot of what makes up this character is literally just taken from other villains. Oh, Gravedigger's Poppy? Yeah, Scarecrow made that. Oh, hey, he seems to be an immortal being. Nah, it's probably just the Lazarus Pit. Managed to infiltrate Arkham Tower and put his own people on the inside. Yeah, it feels like several different villains have done that one over the years. Overall, I think I'd feel comfortable giving this one a 7 out of 10. I'm not glad that I decided to catch up on this one. I'm still a big Philip Kennedy Johnson fan. It's just this book is probably going to need to do a little bit more to try and win me over fully completely.
Hey there everyone, it's your old pal Cape Joel again, thanking you so much for watching to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, why not check out my Amazon link down in the description. Yes, that's right, the Cape Joel channel officially has its own Amazon storefront now. You can pick up a comic or anything else for that matter, and if you did, you'd really be helping me in the channel. So with that out of the way everyone, I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.